Hello, this is Tony Heller from RealClimateScience.com. YouTube frequently contaminates my videos with this sort of propaganda. United Nations. Climate change refers to long-term shifts in temperatures and weather patterns mainly caused by human activities, especially the burning of fossil fuels. So let's take a look at how well the United Nations understands what drives the Earth's climate. In 1988, the United Nations predicted that the 1,196 islands of the Maldives would be underwater by the year 2018. And they also predicted the Maldives would run out of drinking water by the year 1992. And 1 year later, in 1989, the United Nations ramped up the severity of their forecasts. A senior environmental official at the United Nations, Noel Brown, says entire nations could be wiped off the face of the earth by rising sea levels if global warming is not reversed by the year 2000. He said governments have a 10-year window of opportunity to solve the greenhouse effect before it goes beyond human control. So according to the United Nations, the Maldives should have disappeared under the seas 4 years ago. Earlier today, I checked this webcam from the Maldives, and it appears that the islands are still there and they're doing just fine. In fact, island nations like the Maldives have grown up to 8% in size over the past 6 decades. The Maldives have been growing in recent years, but that wasn't always the case. In 1837, the islands were drowning, and some of the islands actually disappeared. The United Nations says this sort of thing occurs because of the burning of fossil fuels, but I don't think there were a lot of people driving cars back in 1837. The United Nations has a pretty bad track record on climate, and they rely on spokespersons like Leo DiCaprio. Leo is not a scientist, and in fact, he dropped out of high school. An even more famous UN climate spokesperson was an angry teenager from Sweden.
This is all wrong. I shouldn't be up here. I should be back in school on the other side of the ocean. Yet you all come to us young people for hope. How dare you? You have stolen my dreams and my childhood with your empty words.
Politicians like to use actors and children to create fear about climate. And they also like to use political science professors like Katharine Hayhoe. A long time ago, she generated this graph showing that we're all going to burn up by about the year 2020. And the press says the world is overheating and we're having unprecedented heat waves. But according to the University of Maine, today's global temperature anomaly is 0.1 degrees Celsius below the 1979 to 2000 average. Temperatures are below normal in Greenland, most of the United States, South America, Antarctica, much of Africa, Australia, India, and most of Russia. It's almost like the press and the United Nations are not telling us the truth. Now let's go back to 1989 and see what's actually going on. Canberra Times, January 26, 1989. Governments must yield national sovereignty to multilateral authorities able to enforce laws across environmentally invisible frontiers. If the greenhouse effect, which threatens the future of whole nations, is to be overcome, the Commonwealth Secretary General said on Tuesday. And of course, they were fear-mongering about the Maldives disappearing. The United Nations has demonstrated no skill in understanding climate, so what this is really about is global governance. The United Nations wants to be in charge of the world. A century ago, H.L. Mencken said, "The urge to save humanity is almost always only a false face for the urge to rule it. Power is what all messiahs really seek, not the chance to serve." There's a good chance YouTube will mock themselves by contaminating this video with the standard United Nations propaganda. The United Nations has been demonstrating for almost 35 years that they don't understand the climate. Toto wonders why half of the human race falls for the same scams over and over again, decade after decade. You can visit Toto, Kyrie, Caesar, Toki, and Upla on the web at RealClimateScience.com.